Good. I was gonna ask. Yes, it is. Okay, welcome everybody, virtually and in person here, and thanks for showing up. I know it's a nice day, so there's a lot of other things you could be doing, so appreciate that. We start with introductions usually, so I will start. I'm Lon Louise. I'm with Aubrey Butte Homeowners Association. Everybody ready?
Good afternoon, I'm Craig Less, I'm with Tamarack Wildfire Consulting.
Suzanne Butterfield, Aubrey Park HOA. Good afternoon, Patty Giuliano, Sun River Owners Association.
Les Adams from River Forest Acres neighborhood.
Frank Amarada, Tolkien Village HOA.
Craig Rankert, Deschutes Market Road, HOA or Firewise.
Gabe Couch, Tethro Owners Association.
Bryn Heiner, Fire Adapted Communities Coordinator.
Peter Rome, Hillside Park.
Jeff Brown, Eagle Crest Homeowners Association.
Diane Holmes with the Bridges at Shadow Glen, HOA and Firewise Committee.
I'm Eric Moyerman, I'm with Sundance Firewise.
And Sherry Mullen, Would You Creek Homeowners Firewise.
Okay, thank you. And first thing on our agenda is to, anybody have any comments on the prior month's meeting minutes? I wasn't here, so they look good to me. Anything? So a motion to approve them?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Good. Okay, in the recruitment area, are there any new attendees here today? I think so. Or on virtually, is there anybody new? I'm always curious how they found out about us. Oh. Okay, okay. Anybody have any comments or anything about recruitment? I've gone to several different of the training sessions, and our organization pops up a lot now in terms of just recognition of it and recommendations that people join. And then when I have individual conversations, I do the same, and I'm sure some of you folks do as well. And by the way, we now have this great brochure, which is back here. If you guys want to grab copies of them and take as many as you think you might need to hand out, but it's really well done. Ren, thank you, and Melissa and whoever was all involved.
And I can get more if people want stats.
Yeah.
I have 1,000 of them.
But I had a kind of a mentoring call yesterday and talked to, in fact, it was with your organization, with Dana. Isn't Dana with you? Right along the bridges?
Yeah.
Dana 11.
I don't know who that is.
Interesting.
So who's interested in Firewise?
Is Kurt Johnson with you guys?
Mhm.
That's bizarre. Anyway, my point was going to be, in talking to her, shared a lot of information and certainly encourage them, and she's not here, but certainly encourage them to join. So I think if we all get an opportunity to suggest it, it's, I think once people come to a meeting or attend either way, they find there's a lot of resources here they didn't know were available.
So have there been any new neighborhoods as a result of those training sessions? I saw you at one. Right after 2 meetings ago, I guess.
Yeah, our first one that we went to had to be 3 months ago at Oregon State, or at the Deschutes County, the Oregon State Extension. I think a few people came from that one, but I'm not 100% certain, so I haven't really tracked it that way. But there is discussion. I know that the one that was at the Bend Public Library, there was a lot of discussion around the coalition. So again, I don't know. Has anybody here heard of us through any of the education? So that's not overwhelming.
I mean, that's the session I was at, and I'm surprised it didn't generate anything.
Right, yeah, so, I mean, the reality is this time of year, sometimes people are doing different things.
Yeah.
What we're finding out is winter actually isn't a bad time to stay focused on it. Just because people are less busy and you can get kind of some of the background stuff done, and it's actually even a good time in working with some of the maintenance and landscaping folks even a good time for doing a lot of the remediation, which the first year we thought that's backwards. We thought, okay, it's gonna be winter time and people can't really do much, but that's when a lot of the work should be done, just from fire safety perspective, all sorts of things, so. Anyway,
Less
we'll see. What's that?
It's less dusty in the winter.
Well, there's that.
It's
Yeah.
dragging, brushing, doing
Yeah.
all that dirty work.
Yeah. No,
Disturbs the ground a lot less as well.
and a lot of the people that work on those crews are available in the winter, but they work, they're on fire crews and things in the fire season, so it tends to be a big source of their workforce. So for a lot of reasons, it turned out to be a pretty good time of year to stay focused.
This might have predated one before I joined this, but has there been any coordination in either presenting or speaking at any of the 13 official neighborhood associations and within Bend?
As the coalition,
Yeah, as
You mean as us,
this,
this
yeah,
group?
like presenting, obviously promoting Firewise, but also seeing if anyone, because typically they're usually not staff, but usually the folks who are in those neighborhood associations tend to be the ones who, they're the ones that make things happen, so they're usually the influencers, if you will.
yeah,
to those neighborhood
um,
associations. I don't know if you guys have.
I don't no,
Consider doing
unless Corinne and you folks have talked to them, but no, but I've talked to the Aubrey Butte Owners Association. And when I did, I was kind of surprised how little focused on Firewise they were. So they sort of count on the communities that within their organization to do their own thing, but not that they're not open to more coordination. And I think that's probably a good idea. So I think Robin, who's not here, is pretty involved in their, can't remember the name of it, but they're, so it's a good idea to get some outreach. So I presented not just about the coalition, it wasn't really intended about the coalition per se, but when I presented at the Bend Library one, we talked quite a bit about this organization, so. But it's, we just keep getting the word of mouth out there and it just keeps growing, but that's a good idea.
Yeah, I went to my neighborhood association's annual meeting and they had different speakers come in and do presentations, and that would be, maybe just like a 10 or 15-minute presentation, but that would be a great one.
Yeah.
I think what you're talking about is the Neighborhood Leadership Alliance, the NLA.
No. So within the city of Bend, there's, I believe, 13
It is
That's right.
neighborhood associations that are supposedly the conduit directly to the city of Bend and the city council and all that. But what's nice is it's geographically, they
Yeah,
cover all
it
the
is.
different areas.
And
I don't, it may be
is.
involved with that as well, but that's not how I know it. But
Yeah,
that may
it's
be.
the Neighborhood Leadership Alliance, and my neighbor is the president of it, Hans Jorgensen. So I can talk to Hans about that.
Oh, good.
But the city has stopped using them as a conduit, but they still exist.
Oh, they have.
Well,
Yeah,
They
that's what-
Can't listen to too many
they got rid of the NLA, but
They
there's
did.
still the neighborhood association. is
Yeah,
still
Right.
there.
yeah, there's, I mean,
I believe they still meet and so forth, they're just not, they don't have that conduit anymore to the city.
oh, interesting. Okay.
But the neighborhood associations do.
They just had an annual meeting in mine, the farm district.
Yeah, ours is tomorrow,
Mhm.
and I think that guy will be presenting.
I will, yes.
Well, bring up the coalition.
No, Craig.
I will.
You have some brochures.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'll grab a bunch too, because then on the 20th of June, Melissa's coming out with a fire truck and doing a presentation for the community then too. Because it's right in the middle of our fire-free week that we're doing.
Oh, perfect. That's good time.
Yeah, they've been good. We did 100 yards the first round so far this year. It's about what we average.
Where do you put your bins there?
So we have 2 different locations. So right down off of Sol, or actually we didn't do that this time. So down off of Meeks and Metolius, we have a big, like a little park down there. So we put 2 bins there. And then a new one was Solomon, kind of at the end of Solomon, right down from the Tethro T-Sport.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
There's
there's
a
just
day I
been an
got-
open lot
I
that
gotta look
hasn't
at
been
it.
built
Okay.
on yet.
Yeah.
Roll-off dumpster kind of
Yeah.
thing?
Yep, we get 3 of them pretty much every time, and then they come and switch them out 5 days into it, because we have 10 days. And that's what the sweat equity program, we got 2 different rounds of it.
We're doing that too, and we were just talking earlier, we have 4 30-yard bins, 2
Yeah.
different locations. Kind of switching them around because we had some issues about the location of it. So it might be 3 in 1, but
Yeah.
up on the butte, and then we switch them out every day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we had troubles last year and the year before with being overfilled,
Yeah.
and Republic would not dispose of them, so that
Oh,
created a
yeah.
real problem.
No, I have to go stomp them down.
Yeah, well, you guys have a landscaping crew.
It's not even have signs
Huh?
right in front of them that say not to overfill them.
I know.
And when I show up in the morning, they're 3-4 feet above the level. I'm like,
I know,
there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, you
I'm
can't,
not-
you
I'm not
gotta-
there to regulate.
I know, and then, you can't throw any bags in them, but that,
Yeah,
So we try to
I have to
police
search
that.
for garbage and all that stuff too, just to be
Mhm.
sure.
but anybody else in the middle of that right now with the
We
fire?
just finished ours. My experience is it takes about an hour per overfilled dumpster to chop them down to size so they come and pick it up.
Yeah, we just
Oh,
do three.
no.
three
Your personal
garbage
experience?
bins.
You bet.
Yeah.
Take a look at the bruises.
We're doing ours at the end of the month,
Okay,
after,
We were too.
after the fire free, people who missed that.
oh, got it.
We just did a week at the beginning of May with from the Deschutes County, and that worked really well. They brought it the day that they said they would and picked it up when they said they would, and it was great.
And who's on the sweat equity program?
Sweating.
You're doing it? So, That's great.
Yeah, we just finished, well, we use our bins, we use the bags, and we learn to collect the bags and we put them in the bins, so we're the ones that load the bins. So we only took 6 dumpsters, 1,574 bags, and then we do, we have Pat Rick Fire, who's our contractor,
Right.
and they come through and pick up the debris, 85 10-yard dump truck loads.
Oh.
And then we'll ship it, so 800,
Wow.
Aubrey Glen does that too, where people set up the bags. First year we went riding through that neighborhood, there must have been 2,000 bags out there. We're like, what is this? And it was just pretty much pine needles. Yeah. That'd be a handy service. Does anybody have experience with chipping? So,
we chip all the stuff on site.
because
Doing it.
this Dana that I talked to yesterday, who I don't know which HOA she's with, she was just specifically asking about our experience with chipping, but we've never done it. I'll review it. So,
Yeah, I led a chipping project in our neighborhood, the first one that I know of. We got a grant through Deschutes County Forestry, thank you, Kevin. The grant wasn't as much as we hoped, so we didn't get as much participation. But I talked with several other neighborhood leaders who had done chipping projects, so I had a guess as to how many people might participate and how much material we might produce. There's a bit of a catch-22 because no contractor is really gonna give a price until they can know how much they might have to deal with, and nobody's really gonna commit to putting their slash out there until they know how much it might cost them. So I had to sort of balance that, but in my neighborhood of 108 homes, we had 7 participants. They filled 2 big chipper box trucks, very full. It was 5 hours work for a 4-person crew, and cost each person, well, one homeowner paid $68. The rest of us paid less than $20.
oh, really?
In addition to the $1,000 grant spread among 7 people.
So it kind of depends on how much grant funding you have, first of all.
Yeah.
And if it takes 2 or 3 days, then maybe that runs out the first day and people, you kind of have a ballpark cost for.
Yeah, I communicated that everybody should commit to doing it or not doing it, once I gave them a ballpark price. And we had a deadline date, so the contractor could come through and review how much stuff there actually was. And we were fairly accurate in guessing how much stuff there might be.
That's a good, so you had commitments and then they drove around the neighborhood and said, okay, that looks like it's half a day's work or something.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody had to have their stuff piled up, and it instructed how to pile it so it can be picked up with grapples and fed into a chipper. And everybody committed to having that out there by a certain date. And the contractor and I went through the neighborhood and stopped at every address that had committed to take part. And he said, this looks like X number of hours of work for my crew. And they banged it out in about half that time.
Were you pretty specific about how to bring your debris down?
Yeah, I was specific based on what the chipping contractor required. which was a pile of everything parallel, hopefully with all the butt ends at the same end.
Right.
No big lumps of fine stuff like debris or cones that will mat in a chipper and maybe not go through.
Right.
Stuff up to 12 inches in diameter, but no rocks and no stumps, you know, or
Sure.
the usual stuff you'd expect. It went great.
So it was all limbs and trees.
Limbs, branches, small trees, yeah. I saw some stuff that was like 8 to 9 inches in diameter. And some of it pretty solid that could have been good firewood, but a lot of it was just junk. But mostly, almost entirely limbs and small trees, yeah.
We did a program 2 years ago now with, it ended up being a little awkward because we didn't know how many people would subscribe. We have 200 families and ended up with 20 participating. And I had to figure out a map of the neighborhood to show the contractor who was doing it and who wasn't. And we sent out very specific instructions on how to lay the stuff out so it could be easily picked up. And it ended up being about 2.5 days work. And it went great.
Did you charge the owners?
We charged the owners, and we had $6,000 from Deschutes County. We didn't use all of it. We used about 4, but essentially we overcharged them to begin with and then rebated as much as we could from the grant based on how many people had subscribed, because we didn't know. So it ended up being about $100 for
And you
a
saved,
10 by 40 foot stack.
and you saved some of the grant money for other things?
We did it again on a much smaller scale in the fall, with what was left.
I'm sorry.
And that was good sort of follow-up for some people who hadn't done it the first time.
And you said it was about $100 a piece? Net,
Yeah.
Kind of net?
Yeah, it sort of netted out.
Or
Out of pocket plus $4,000 from the grant.
did you get any feedback either way about, like, were people disappointed they didn't take part in it after they saw what it did? Was there any overlap demand?
I didn't hear such comments, but I bet when word gets around a little better among those who didn't participate, that the person with probably 8 pickup loads paid $64 and the rest of us paid under 20.
That's great, yeah.
I think there probably will be more participants.
Sure.
And I should say that our contractor was quite willing to keep track of their hours at each address. So after the grant money, so the additional cost above our grant money, I allocated among each homeowner based on how many minutes were spent at their property. So everybody paid proportionally. Because there was some concern about the enormous mountain of material at
The one.
person's home.
Would you share the name of the contractor?
Yeah, Spring River Tree Company. And incidentally, I called probably 10 different companies, and I must have exchanged text messages and phone calls, another 10 or 12 times, and this was the only contractor that would talk seriously with me about it. The rest just didn't have time.
What time of year did you do it?
We just, we committed to it last fall and just had it done the first week of April.
Oh, just recently?
Pardon?
Just recently?
Yes.
Yeah. 5 weeks ago or something?
Yes. That way, and one thing I communicated to the neighborhood was the winter is a great time to be doing it because you can drag the stuff over the snow a little bit easier. It's not too hot. You have months to get it done. You don't have to kill yourselves.
So we chip on site, and we don't haul it off. We spread it, we broadcast it to like a 2-inch mat. Helps keep the cheatgrass down, and a bunch of grass grows up through it pretty well. $2,000 a day for a 3-man crew and a big chipper. So they go through 35 piles to 40 piles a day. And it's not blanked up or anything. I mean, it's just dope.
Is there any cost to the owners?
Not for that particular program, but our vacant lot program, the owners are paying for chipping in that.
Okay. And what time of year do you do it?
The vacant lot or we do chipping year round.
Oh, year round, so you're always doing something.
So between the fire season, we're not doing anything, so July 1 to October 30, October 1, then we're dead, but.
Yeah.
shipping all the time.
Okay. Good, that's good to know. We'll pass that on to Dana. Thank you.
I got the fire-free numbers from the landfill. There was 4,440 vehicles that went through for the week, just 2 weekends in the week. And 16,130 total cubic yards of debris.
15,000 cubic yards?
16,
16.
yeah, 16.
Wow.
Cubic yards.
4,400 vehicles?
Yep.
Wow.
And is that only at
That
nine?
was just the landfill. The transfer stations they start on the 31st. So we still haven't started those yet.
Tell me again, was it June 3rd through the 12th or something?
It's May 31st
May.
through.
I meant
June
May.
8th.
Cool. So moving on to the education component of the agenda, which we don't have a present.
I have a
oh,
question.
Sorry.
Does anybody have any contacts in the West Hills? Because they're southwest of where we live, and we just assumed they didn't burn down.
I don't know. Do we have HOA contact information? Do you guys have that in any sort of updated format at all?
They might not have an HOA.
Huh?
They might not have an
True,
HOA.
true, they might not, but I wonder how we,
What's the area? West?
West Hills.
Where's that located?
West of 12th Street, all the way over to College Way.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Not aware of any HOA in that area.
A lot of pine needles in there.
they're clearing it out with those new apartments. So.
Right.
See if there's anything on the web. I'm sure this has been though. Yeah, it's not kicking out as any bend ones. So, I don't know.
Oh, that's the city too.
And so you're hopeful that somebody would attend or come?
There's somebody there that wants to get involved in it, I'm sure.
Okay. So you'll follow up?
I will.
Okay. Great. So we don't have any presentations today, so this recommendation was just to have a roundtable. I guess we've already sort of had one with some of the discussion we've already had, but one of the ideas, Craig, you had read the book that Ray had recommended 2 meetings ago, I think,
Yes,
called Fire Weather.
yeah, it's Fire Weather by John Ballant, Ballant, B-A-I-L-L-A-N-T.
And you said it was quite interesting, and so you said you'd be happy to just share a real quick summary of it.
Sure. The library does have the book, that's where I got it, and Ray suggested this, and it focuses around the fire that took place at Fort McMurray, Alberta, Canada. It started on May 1st, 2016. And on May, but it also focuses on the whole process of wildfires and what's causing that, and fire science and some of the human, I would say science, human interaction with regard to events like that. But the fire started on May 1st, that was human caused. On May 3rd at 11 o'clock, officials in Fort McMurray had a press conference and said it was a normal day, but be prepared. And it was going to be a rough day. The point I took from that is they told people still, take your kids to school, go play, have sports events. That was at 11 o'clock on the 3rd. The temperatures that day were in the high 80s, 30 degrees hotter than normal. And let me back up just a moment. Fort McMurray, Alberta, if you're not familiar with it, is north of Edmonton. It's an oil sands, oil city. Doesn't exist otherwise. And it's in the boreal forest, black spruce trees, but way north in Canada. Temperatures were in the high 80s, 30 higher than normal, and humidity was 15%, a record low for that day or that time of year. And crossover occurred in midday that day. Crossover occurs when the temperature in Celsius is more than the relative humidity. So, on that day, it was 26 degrees and Celsius and 26% humidity, or less than 20%, 6% humidity. And how often do we have that here? Crossover all the time. Fire guys know this better, and I'd never heard of it before. Then in the afternoon of the 3rd, they evacuated 100,000 people.
Oh.
Many without any evacuation order. There's only one road out of town. One road, part of it goes north, the other part goes south. If you go north, it's a dead end. It is a 4-lane road. The evacuation was orderly but slow, and it was through flying embers and fire on the side of the road. So one of the stories there was a temperature on the car reported 150 degrees. The Canadian national virtues, and everyone got out of town alive. Part of that was driven, I think, by Canadian virtues, which is peace, order, and good government. One of the stories in there was a husband and wife were driving in the evacuation. Husband got impatient and wanted to break out of line of, the cars moving at, snail's pace, and was, going to drive cross country. His wife chewed him out and prohibited him from doing that. Would that occur in Central Oregon? Or would it have people driving their 4 wheels cross country everywhere? In fighting the fire, water was ineffective. The heat and the wind were so strong, water wouldn't quench the fire. Instead, they deployed bulldozers and excavators to tear down houses before they burned to reduce the height of the fire. Yeah. You see, bulldozer and excavators running through Northwest Crossing or Aubrey View. But that's what they needed to do. And there they had basements, so they tear the houses down and dump them into the basement. Emergency officials failed to recognize, or at least acknowledge, how bad the fire could get, and did not order a mass evacuation because they didn't want to cause panic. How often have we heard, officials, leaders saying, I don't want to cause panic, which is an understandable reaction, but if you don't tell them to evacuate, what do you have? There's the Lucretius principle, Lucretius problem rather, which I'd not heard of until I read this book. It's a human condition where humans have difficulty imagining or assimilating things outside their own personal experience. So and you hear this, on the news, almost every major natural disaster. I never thought it could get this bad. And the officials, the leaders in Fort McMurray, succumbed to that tendency. There were 2,500 homes and other structures destroyed. 2,300 square miles were burned. It was the most expensive natural disaster in Canadian history. And the fire was not extinguished until August a year later. Wow. 2017. So it burned through the winter.
And the fire got so hot that it was hotter than the fire in a crematorium. And cars and people and things were literally reduced to ash with no residual of anything. I listened to it even more dramatically on a book tape
Oh, okay.
last week.
Okay.
And it's sort of the scared straight of wildfire. I mean, I was terrified.
And they talked about, how's it just exploding in flames and gone in minutes, 5 minutes?
And the nice thing about the way the book was written, and there'd be a chapter on sort of climate science and fire behavior, and then jump back to this story of the unfolding disaster, then a little bit more climate science, and then the disaster. And so it was very well put together. And you learned a lot, as well as got scared a lot about it. I can see that happening.
And, talk about some fire guys who were in Slave Lake, which had burned 5 years earlier.
We tried to come to the rescue and nobody believed them.
Yeah.
But they were the guys who came up with that technique of just knocking down perfectly good $1 million houses to make a fire break in these neighborhoods that they were trying to save, because they couldn't keep ahead of the fire front as it was taking out street after street. So they said, let's go 3 streets up, just knock it all down.
Was that successful?
It was.
And they brought up from Slave Lake some sprinklers, and I didn't fully understand that.
Yeah, they had a system where they had essentially huge garden hoses and sprinklers and pumps so that they could pre-wet an area that they had been asked they'd been trying to make the point that they should offer this service. Somebody reluctantly said, well, if you really want to, you can come by and do it. But they had learned from a similar fire a couple of years earlier that was a way to sort of pre-treat a neighborhood, get things wet enough that when the fire front came, it would slow things down. I know they deployed it a little bit, but I think it was a minor thing in this particular story.
And I know the other thing, they ran out of water pressure within the city because there were so many water lines broken with destroyed houses that were leaking, that there wasn't enough pressure in the areas where they were, water pressure were in the areas where they're trying to fight the fire. So I think, your point of scared straight is.
Sounds like it. So there were deaths?
I don't think there were.
No, I think
there
so.
were. No.
No.
That's
It's
amazing.
just huge property
That is
damage.
amazing.
And plus, I guess the lucky thing is, this is a refinery town, and they kept it away from the refineries, so there was no huge industrial fire aspect to it. And the good part of that was, because of that, there was a lot of heavy equipment and heavy equipment operators available to leave these tar sands and go save the city. That in a typical place like this, you might not be able to muster as quickly as they were able to.
And, it's a young, hardworking population. No retirees there. So, that, and it's in the North Canadian environment, so it's, rugged outdoors folks, more so than.
Canada's on fire again this year.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's, that, obviously there's smoke up there now, and that's, started.
They had a rough year last year.
So it's.
Okay.
Interesting book and interesting perspective. And okay, if we had a major fire here, how well could we evacuate the town? And granted, we've got more than 2 roads out of town, but none of them are 4 lane.
Craig, do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I think we're very fortunate because we have a very well coordinated system here, and they get a lot of practice. So that's really good things, like high frequency, low drag kind of thing. The Deschutes County Sheriff's Office runs evacuations. If you haven't ever heard Nathan Garibay speak, he's wonderful. He's the one that coordinates that all. They have, to the extent possible for planning evacuations, you never know where everybody needs to go. So there's limitations on what you can plan, but to the extent that planning is possible, they've done all that. And they're very well connected with all the different firefighting agencies and entities. So I think that they are well prepared. I think that they practice a lot. I think that they're more inclined to evacuate early than wait too late because they kind of have that slide tray that they're really used to doing that. But all that said, you know, if a fire's just up and running out of the gate, it's gonna be frantic. If they have time to get resources on it and have a few minutes to kind of collect themselves, they'll do a good job. But if it's just up and running fire, and it's gonna be a little frantic for a while before they catch up. But I think we're really fortunate here in Deschutes County. I think they're very well prepared. And the more prepared the community is, the better that will go. So if everybody knows the levels, ready, set, go, and has their plan and their kit, that'll just make it go smoother. Kevin,
And if you want to hear Nathan speak about this, he'll be at Project Wildfire on Tuesday morning, giving his evacuation spiel, so you can ask him questions.
Did I miss anything, Kevin?
No,
Okay.
I mean, from a lot of areas I've lived, it's pretty well organized here. I think the Deschutes alerts is huge, and the amount of people that are utilizing that is really big. Evacuations, it really is so situation dependent that, you know, a town scale evacuation is a very low likelihood, where it would more likely be just an area that would be evacuated. And that might not be more than, you know, a few miles or to areas that, you know, would be considered a risk. So I don't know, these the new age of fire is just a little perplexed every time I hear about one of like, well, no one thought that was gonna happen. So,
That's like, kind of the point you were saying.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, they had to, in this case, they had to relocate they had the coordination center at a firehouse that got overrun, and they had to move all their coordination stuff, I think, twice.
yeah.
To keep ahead of the fire.
All these prescribed burns that are going on now seem to be getting closer and closer to us. Is that true, or does it seem like they're burning out some additional areas?
They've been working on the west side project for a while now. They've gotten most of the areas right next to communities. Now they're just trying to fill in a few areas to kind of improve that continuity.
Mhm.
So, you know, and then some areas right behind them. So, you know, the Welcome Center was an area they were trying to work on.
Right.
Big Eddie's an area that really would kind of complete that continuity, but just really kind of building that area for, you know, resilience and being fire adapted. So I wouldn't say they're necessarily closer. Some of the hardest burns have already been accomplished. There's probably a few in there that they still need to, but proximity to Bend, they're still close. Like, yeah, I mean, they're still in that zone where the smoke sensor receptor area is gonna get impacted,
Sure.
no matter what.
With the cooler weather over the next week or week and a half, will they take advantage of that? Is that something that is helpful, or?
It's not always temperature. I mean, temperature has a piece to it, but it's really the fuel moisture and the direction, the winds, and like what the sort of atmosphere is doing. You know, if they can get good lifting with smoke, that's something to be concerned of. The wind direction is probably imperative of what they decide to burn. That probably is the biggest single piece. The weather will dry fuels out faster, and so they'll tend to get out of prescription if it's too hot and dry for too long. So moderate weather might moderate that for a little bit longer. It kind of keeps their burn window like to last a little bit longer if it's moderate weather. If we had temperatures in 85 for the next 3-4 weeks, they'd probably be out of prescription pretty quick.
Yeah, that's only a mile from us.
I know,
We had to let the whole community know not to worry.
Yeah.
But then the bad part is, you know, they judge the wind during the day, but then at nighttime, if you wait here a while, it flips the opposite way. And we got purple air up there, and this was over 1,000. The last couple of nights.
The diurnal, the mornings have been, the last 2 mornings have been pretty rough.
Well, it's weird too. I live 3 miles from Jethro, just to the north a little bit, and ours hasn't been, like last night it was maybe 200 and some, but it's 1,000 up at Jethro.
Yeah.
So it's weird
Closer to the
how.
river.
That's thick.
Yeah. Discovery West got hit pretty hard last couple of days too.
We heard a couple of fire engines, or a fire engine each day. Is that anything, do you know, to be concerned about?
Like you heard the code, the sirens?
The sirens, yeah.
Oh, that was probably, I would guess something unrelated. It would just be
Okay.
some other emergency that they were responding to. Yeah, but generally the Forest Service employees don't run code in their fire engines.
Okay, good to know.
No, as far as I know, everything went really well. And, you know, obviously they probably would have hoped for perfect lifting and settling, but the fact that the smokes lifted both days pretty quickly, I think it's pretty successful.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I actually just want to share a couple things. I'm Millie Gaines. Sorry I was late today. I apologize. I'm trying to get a Firewise neighborhood started in Deschutes River Woods, opposite of where Greg Bryan has his. So I'm doing the whole River Canyon. All the houses along the River Canyon from north to south in Deschutes River Woods. We did that assessment last Friday, which was awesome. And so I'm doing a gathering this next week, get neighbors together and so forth. But one of the things that they shared was, and I think it was Heather from the State Fire Marshal's office, I guess, shared, you know, when I mentioned, well, I had learned in their the workshop that we've done a couple weeks before that referred to Deschutes River Woods should consider themselves an evacuation level 1 all during fire season. And she responded when I commented last Friday, she goes, the entire Deschutes County should consider themselves on evacuation level 1 all during fire season. But I think that's not a message that people have, right? So that ready means you're supposed to be ready all the time, not just if they say get ready, was one thing. And then I did want to share, I was at City Club today for their monthly luncheon, and next month on the 20th, which is the same day as this meeting, I'll be out of town, but they're gonna Wildfire, understanding wildfire, and I can't remember what else they're doing, it's gonna be the topic. So anybody here speaking at that by any chance? But I thought people in the room might wanna know that that's gonna be.
Which one again?
City Club of Central Oregon's gonna do that up at the Universal Unitarian Churches where it's held on June 20th.
Oh, yeah.
Are you speaking?
Wrote.
Okay. Thank you for doing that. Yeah.
Take lots of brochures, Kevin.
And
They're
then
asking me about how are fire decisions made?
yes, how are fire decisions?
Yeah,
The
I
answer is
don't really have much involvement in, but yeah.
well, good luck.
Yeah, turn that off to the Forest Service or ODF.
Yeah, it's, I think Sean Hacka.
Okay, sure.
Someone from ODF, I can't remember who else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I had one more thought, and I was just thinking, you know, this whole, so being in Deschutes River Woods, which is like a paradise, and it's referred to as Paradise, California a lot for regards to what it would be like in a wildfire situation. And so I know we've been asking about evacuation practices, and I understand if I heard today, I probably just need to call the Deschutes County Sheriff and ask them. But a thought I had was, as a school principal years ago in Arizona, when we would do our monthly fire alarms, we began setting up staged blockages on what people were typically used to doing. And so somebody be standing there with a poster that said fire, and a teacher and all the kids had to turn and go different directions. So we had to practice getting out different ways. And when I did that home assessment on my house a couple of years ago here for fire stuff, one of the things that person shared with me was practice at night. Practice not being able to see your street signs, because if the smoke is thick, you won't be able to see the street signs. Practice knowing if you need to go right or left, and then practice many ways out, right? So I now have a map in my glove box that I could look at if I'm not terrified, and even if I'm terrified, to be able to say to me, if I want to go here, take a right or left, if I want to go here, take a right or left. And so it's all, and then what the mileage is. So I did, you know, quarter mile to this next turn, a quarter mile to that next turn. And so my question is this, yes, I've got anxiety, so I do that so I can be prepared. At the same time, you know, of course, we don't know what's going to happen. But my question would be, could the sheriff's office set up an evacuation for like Deschutes River Woods and have staged areas that have somebody there with a sign that says fire, you got to turn around and go the other way? Like, so because in there, we really only have one way out, unless you do Buck Canyon Road, which is not easy, and that takes you to Brookswood, where everybody else from River Rim and everybody will be coming. Or we have the one that is the fire gate that would only be open if fire people need to get in. That's not a way out.
Yeah.
So my question is, why can't evacuation practices be held disregarding cost, time, and not wanting to cause panic? Why can't they be held? I mean,
Well, that's a great,
yeah.
I mean, I love your simulation. That's
Yeah.
a great one to do. It's a wonderful idea, and I think it's absolutely worth talking to Sergeant Garibay about that.
I wonder if they've ever done any of those. I mean, they may have, who knows? How big is your community?
2,000 homes.
Wow.
And it goes back, like, I'm not even all the way in the
Yeah,
back,
it would.
I'm not even all the way in the back, but it's 2 miles from my house to 97 on Baker Road.
So 2,000 properties?
2,000 homes that I know of, yeah.
And what
You
a,
guys don't tell Nate I said that.
yeah, what a great way to get the neighborhood aware of what it would be like.
Well, I mean, only those owners that want to participate would do
Right,
it, but.
Right, but we make sure
But-
everybody is notified,
Yeah,
this is a
right.
practice, and everywhere where there's a sign saying fire, you could say this is a practice only. You know, this is just to give people practice, it's not a real
You have
thing.
big Chinook helicopters flying.
Right. Yeah.
I remember, I asked Nathan a year or two ago, because it was stated that he would give talks to HOAs. So I said, Nathan, can you do that with us? And as I recall, his answer was, evacuations should be done on the route that you normally take to get out to where, he says, don't try anything new during evacuation. Whatever you're used to taking, take it. So that was what I remember.
But that being said, it depends, but the fire might be coming from that area.
Right.
Right,
So,
but that
and-
was still his response, was in general, to take the route you're familiar with. Don't try something you're not familiar with,
In a panic.
unless you have to, I guess.
Unless you have
to.
In a
Unless you have
panic,
to,
muscle
yeah.
memory, you're gonna go how you always go to
Right.
and from your house, right?
Yeah,
But he was also saying that, you know, they will provide information to people through Deschutes alerts and otherwise, or feet on the street, you know, as to where to go and where not to go. You know, like Aubrey Butte, we have five different outlets, but 2 or 3 of them might not make any sense. So you kind of need to know which ones to pick when there's one in and out, like Black Butte, some others for the most part. You know, that's when you really want to go early, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If there's any sense that you might need to get out, just get out and we'll worry about it later.
Right, I mean, I'm gonna
I'm curious.
leave on level 1, but I don't even know if we'll get a level 1, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm curious how many neighborhoods have only one way in and out. Ours does, just one.
Yours is too. What are your neighborhood, what's your neighborhood?
River Forest Acres.
Okay, and yours is again.
Sundance.
Sundance, that's right.
We have an alternate that's through a locked gate that goes out through Lapine State Parkland. It's 2 tracks of dust that the first couple of vehicles would get through just fine, but I think in fire weather conditions, the dust would be so bad, nobody really thinks it's feasible for all of us to get out that way.
So that'd just be last resort.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a nice paved road into our neighborhood that's a right of way through the national forest, but if that were blocked, it's everybody for himself.
The guys and the people that started the CWP program at Eaglecrest had put in an evacuations road with 6 inches of gravel that can hold the weight of an engine, fire engine coming in, and it's locked. But it'll exit to Highway 126 since there's only 2 other main exits and entrances for incoming and outgoing.
So is that intended for incoming? Is priority?
Both, yeah, because you gotta get the
Yeah.
engines in, the firefighters in. So, as well as getting the people.
One of the conversations we had was somebody, I don't remember the community, but they had sort of a offshoot road, but it was gated. And people said, we'll just break through the gate. And but it was like, but that's really intended to allow large vehicles to get in.
Mhm.
And so
And
you
we were
don't
told
want
to shoot
those
your-
blocked, right?
Yeah, we were told to shoot through roads, do not go that way.
Yeah.
Because they will be turning us back, because the fire engines have to get in.
Yeah, you need to.
And so it's not, don't consider it an option. And I think the other big thing, that I heard the last time Deschutes River was evacuated, which is before I lived there, for fire, is, everybody was trying to get out with all their RVs and
Yeah.
trailers. And
Right,
so, the lines were even worse, of course. And of course, you're gonna want to take your home on your back with you, right? You have to, but, yeah.
Wow. Well, interesting discussion. Thanks. Anything else? On time. We're doing fine on time. Any other?
Heather said something. She
Oh.
said, emergency managers plan for events and will have officers and public works staff helping to direct traffic. This also reinforces the need for you to do defensible space and home hardening work in case you cannot get out for some reason and need to shelter in place.
Yeah.
Another good reason to do.
Les, we're planning to do an event next month on putting together go kits
Oh.
And I wondered if anybody has any resources for things we can put in the kits that I could
We're
get a
working
supply
on,
of.
redoing, I don't know if you've seen the Ready, Set, Go booklets. We're working on doing new ones right now that will have more info on like, you know, go bags, stuff like that. So-
And Nathan, when he talks and then he leaves the handouts, and then when you get, you know, we have a tailored Rebuke evacuation plan, which is really mostly about education and what to put in your go kits. So if you can get a hold of him, he's got a really good handouts.
Who?
Nathan Garrett.
Oh,
I have the
Sarah.
handouts.
Huh?
I have the handouts.
You have the
Nathan's
handout?
really busy, so.
Okay, that's fine, I know he's,
But I'm working with Nathan and
Good.
Ashley in his department to make the new booklet.
but it's, and in fact, I think if you go on, I think I put that on Google Drive, for at least the review one, I think. If I haven't, I'll put it on there.
The American Red Cross on their website used to have all that
Oh, did
information.
they?
And Bob and Heather both mentioned the Red Cross in the
Okay.
chat, so.
Yeah, I have like 5 or 6 different versions of lists and things.
Yeah.
I was looking for like, does somebody have a supply of backpacks or
Oh.
flashlights
Oh.
or things that, you know, you might give away at one of the educational events.
Pacific
that-
Power gave those away at the library
Did they?
Yeah,
conference.
that's right, they did.
Yeah.
I wonder where I put mine.
Sounds good.
Yeah, they gave a radio, they gave an AM radio out.
Pacific Power has been sending more emails than I ever remember about how we're protecting things.
Right.
I thought that was kind of interesting.
Craig?
Just before they asked for a big price. That's
Exactly, I
right.
think it's the lead up to the 21%.
The county has a emergency list of stuff, which I got a couple weeks ago to kind of refresh my go bag. And some of it's, you know, very extensive. Take a truck to haul it. So it's more home-based, but I guess how relevant is that for a fire go bag?
What kind of stuff you talking about?
Yeah.
Well, if you got the printed page, I forget, I mean, some of it was like a gallon of water per person per day.
Is it for like staying at home?
But some
So
of it,
generators and,
yeah, I mean,
water and-
I said, it covered a variety of emergencies, so it was, you know, extended power outages or extended, you know, severe storm type stuff. But some of it was the, you know, go bag, and I guess the 5 Ps. Pets, papers, prescriptions.
Prescriptions.
People.
I actually cheated a little bit. I actually just ordered off Amazon, it was about $100. It was a 72-hour 2-person go bag.
oh, really?
And yeah, and so what I did was I got one of those and then basically fine tune it. You basically take out what you don't want or need, put in what you put in extra what you want. But it was an example for, we were supposed to have our community preparedness day. We were gonna have the fire engine the whole bit, and this was last summer. And then we had that week long where it was smoke all week from the prescribed burns. We unfortunately had to cancel it. But yeah, so you can cheat and you can go online and get a go bag that's pre-made. It's generic. It's like buying a generic first aid kit.
Sure.
Most medics or anyone who does first aid would add their own
Yeah, right.
things. But
It's
it's
a
a
good
great
start, though.
baseline, because it's a great baseline, it's $100. And at least it's something to start with, and it's a great example to show folks that you don't have to, like, to your point, there's tons of lists from NFPA, from Red Cross, et cetera, to have a list of things to put in there. But if you just want to start with something, they were anywhere from about 75 to about $125 for a 2-person, 72-hour go bag. Even had emergency food, you know, like the rations, the dehydrated stuff, all that.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Anything else on evacuation plans or go bags?
What, is there any guidance on what to do with your home when you leave it? You leave it locked, you leave it unlocked, you leave the sprinklers running, do you?
There's actually, Heather might be on the call today, but she just sent me this great thing to think about the inside of your house before you leave. And it's, you know, things like moving everything within about 2 feet from every window, like everything on the walls 2 feet away from the windows, any curtains down, you know, any blinds all the way up, you want the windows open, so people could look in your house, but it's the radiant heat. So it's things like that, that was a great resource that she sent. I try to send that to somebody to show.
You wanna take everything off
Corinne, you
your
might have that.
patios
Did you have
and
that?
decks that are flammable,
I'm not sure
and
what
make
you're
sure you
talking
do all
about.
that.
Get away from the siding.
Yeah,
I'd say
close
the
the foundation,
timelines.
bend the
Yeah.
flags.
Yeah.
Yep.
But and they also say, like, if you have time to do this, shut down your utilities, shut down your turn off your water, I don't know about turn off water, turn off electricity. I have to ask the question about turn off water.
Should
Don't
shut
turn your
down the
sprinklers
power.
on in your yard, because it turns the volume, it doesn't help the pressure. And then the other thing, leave gates unlocked, so that firefighters can get into gates. I don't know about leaving your house unlocked, I don't think that would, I don't know, they can break in if they have to. And did that answer your question?
Sort of, yeah, and I saw one thing, leave a flag in the driveway that says evacuated.
Oh,
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
let's
it's
talk about that.
Yeah, I do remember there's something about some way to identify that you're
Yeah.
out of there.
Communicate that way, emergency personnel will just pass your house.
Because
by. They're not
otherwise they
gonna
have to
risk-
go knock on every
They're not gonna
door.
risk going inside or wasting time there.
Yeah, that's
I
good, does that also promote moving?
say that again.
I
Good.
guess there's probably a few opinions on this. I wouldn't turn my water off and leave that available. And then power, I don't know, really depends how you get power.
Gas would probably be a good one.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just that 5-foot zone, and making sure that's clear of everything. And then gates are open if you have fences that go right to your house, that those are open. There's cushions and things like that. And then it's just a matter of how much time you have. What do you think, Craig?
One of the things
I agree, yeah. Windows closed, you don't want embers coming through the screens of your windows.
one of the things we talk about when we're doing assessments and things with our owners being on the butte, we're all worried about big wildfires and all that coming up, but if it's a hot, windy day and there's a house fire or a fire starts in somebody's bitter brush in their yard, a huge area could go right up the butte. So you have to be prepared for that kind of a start too. And that's gonna be really fast when you have to do, so if there are 80 homes in the path of this fire instantly, you don't have much time to do anything. So we try to encourage people to not, because some people say, wildfires, what's the chance that's really gonna hit us? And yeah, but the chance of a fire starting on the butte on the wrong kind of day is realistic, very realistic. And I don't know about probable, but so think about that and how your home would survive if the house across the street went up and the ones above you and how yours would carry up. And so, we talk about that. For the people that are naysayers or not quite sure whether they really want to take it too serious, it's like, and most of the time they'll say, I hadn't really thought about that. So it's that, and I think about it for our property. It's like, it's like to a certain extent, you're only as good as your neighbor.
Yeah, and that's a good point, is that a fire in some of these neighborhoods could most likely start in the neighborhood itself. And so it's not like this perception that it's gonna start on the forest and it's
Yeah.
eventually gonna hit the neighborhood.
And you have 3 hours to watch it come or a day or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of fires that end up on the forest start from neighborhoods. and then they
Yeah, I'm sure.
become-
Sure.
On that note, just real quickly, we've got a Ben Parks and Rec park next to our 135 homes. And twice now, kids will go to that park at night and sit on the bench. And twice now in the last few weeks, they've started a little bonfire. Eh,
You mean deliberately?
Yes,
Ugh.
yes,
for warmth?
because we've seen and so we've been told, in fact, Ben Parks was there today and one of the neighbors talked to them. They said, call Bend PD, that we don't have a security patrol. So, but Bend PD, they're busy. And so I don't know. I guess we'd have to see the bonfire happening and then Bend PD would get there.
Yeah, you probably
But
catch them in the act. There's nothing they can do if they don't see it
exactly, if you
happen.
can't catch them in the act, so we'll have to just be a little more vigilant, I guess, at nighttime and take nighttime walks.
Yeah, everyone has a time to patrol it between the community.
Oh, really? Yeah. Take turns, huh?
Any other topics of interest that people want to talk about? Elizabeth, who's not here today, had talked about, and we had a presentation on this two or three meetings ago, just about updating design guidelines to build in defensibility and both home hardening and landscaping. And is that something anybody wants to talk about, or maybe table it for next time?
Our GM is doing that right now for Tetherville.
Design guidelines?
So I'll talk to her and maybe I'll have some for you guys next month
Oh, good,
on
good.
what exactly that's gonna entail.
Yeah, and so, and I presented it 2 sessions. So we've done it as well at our review. Who else has done that so far? I mean, you guys probably have really tight ones and that probably have for quite a while, right?
No, not for quite a while.
Oh.
Well,
No,
we
those are
need a
big
ban,
changes. We're still struggling now. People don't know.
because everyone loves to put mulch against their house.
Exactly.
And Carl Forsters, which are just huge grasses. And it's amazing the percentage of people, I watch it every day, people doing it.
So are yours going to be retroactive? So
They're gonna do the 5 feet.
so existing owners have to comply with the new
Yeah.
design guidelines?
Yeah, which isn't hard, you come scrape it back and put in some aspen.
Sure, no, I agree.
So HOAs have the authority to say, existing homeowner, you've got a mess there. What can we do? Do we have the legal authority to, if it's in our maybe CCNR?
If it's in the CCNRs, you know, technically, yes. Our problem is we've had decades of practice 180 degrees opposite.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
you gotta put bark mulch or put some trees and shrubs around your house.
Yep,
And it's, you can't take out trees, and so.
same here.
And you know, we have owners that have been there 30 years that are saying, what do you mean I gotta do this? You've been telling me all along that I couldn't do that or had to do, so it's kind of a balance that we're finding. So we have, our design guidelines are definitely for new homes, remodels, major re-landscapings. They have to comply with the new design guidelines. And we're trying to balance it a little bit. I mean, ideally, through our assessments, we can impart all the new design guideline requirements on people, and you know, these are heavily recommended because it's going to help you save your property. But we have not enacted any sort of enforcement against that yet.
Well,
Do you have enforcement rights?
Yes, I think it still has to be voted on, I believe, but I mean.
If you make any major changes to your.
Yes, no,
CCNR,
absolutely.
I mean, the design guidelines need to be voted on.
Yes, yeah.
Well, we did, because with our Telka villages, because it's an old neighborhood, believe it or not, it was the first HOA in the state of Oregon. It was like
I remember hearing that.
1960, whatever, 68, 67, something like that. But anyway, what we did was we couched it in under the guise of, we wanted to update our CCNRs. So the board we have now, we decided to really fine tune them because our CCNRs were essentially, had only been updated maybe twice in 40 years. So we couched it that way, as we basically said, we're gonna tighten up, we're gonna make it simpler to read and understand. We're gonna tighten up, we're gonna have it reflect modern rules and regs within Deschutes County and the city of Bend, but also what we know about climate science and fire danger, et cetera.
Sure.
So we did that. And then also I use sort of Melissa with Bend Fire, and I use the county sort of as the bad cop. Because we also take advantage of the, if your lot, because in the city of Bend, because they have the noxious weed abatement requirements and the rules, and also if your parcel is a half acre or more, you're actually required to keep all flammable vegetation off of your property. So we try to play a little bit of good cop, bad cop, and say, hey, look, it's not just us, the county or the city requires you to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
So that's what we did. And our HOA management company that you drive by us a couple times a month in our neighborhood, and they just make notes. And I had her make sure that they just look at the 0 to 5 foot zone. It's like, hey, someone have firewood stacked against their house? Do they have a bunch of pine leaves in their gutters? Send them just a friendly little reminder letter. Say, hey, just take care of this. This is for, and then again, this is a good opportunity to send them more Firewise information. And for the most part, it has worked. We do have some holdouts, some folks that have lived there for decades, to your point, that don't, they've got juniper bushes that have been there forever and they don't want to get rid of it. And so we're kind of getting to the point where we're going to have to start forcing the issue, because some of them are pretty dangerous. But we haven't had to go to DEFCON 9 yet. Most people have been pretty good about taking care of things. And one thing I've done that I was really against doing it first, but I actually have a separate volunteer group of myself, some board members, and some community members in our neighborhood who all we do specifically is if there's a home that is a problem child where finding them, sending them letters doesn't do anything. I just bite the bullet, swallow my pride, and we just go to the homeowner and say, you know what, we're just gonna come over, we're gonna take care of it for you.
Oh, you do, you
Just go
volunteer to
do
help?
it. And we just go and do it. And so we've done it for 3 houses that have had massive deferred maintenance.
Wow.
And they just either don't want to, can't afford it, whatever, I don't even care the reason. I look at it as I'm protecting all your neighbors. So we just went in and we just cleaned it up. And what actually ended up happening was quite surprising. It was kind of cool because you actually have neighbors getting together, some folks who have never talked to each other, even though they've lived there for 20 years, but I've never seen them. We end up having a good time, busted out and on a Saturday or Sunday morning, show up at 9, we're done by 12 or 1, have a few adult beverages, talk a little bit, and we're done. And so we've actually improved that property and we've helped, and the neighbors were absolutely ecstatic.
Has anybody refused that help?
No, not so far. Yeah, not so far.
And do you have the right to do that?
Well, we have to have the homeowner's permission.
Right, I mean.
We don't just like
we-
show,
well,
they don't come on in their bathrobe with their coffee, what the hell are you doing? Yeah, no, we get their okay. We haven't had any real issues. And again,
Great.
I found that it's worked pretty well so far. And then, the only other thing that I came up with this idea, and they haven't taken me up on it, but I thought it'd be a pretty good idea, is we have one homeowner that has a bunch of that juniper, those juniper shrubs that we just desperately wanted to get rid of. And we have a rule in our CCNRs that you can't have a fence surrounding your entire property. Ours is interesting in that it was a Jan Ward design back in the late 60s. It's like all open space. And so they don't want a bunch of everybody to have fences up. So we offered this specific homeowner one exception that if you take out your juniper, if you let us take your juniper out, we'll allow you to put up a little privacy fence. Because that's why they have it. That's because a lot of older folks like their home the way they like it, because they have tended it for decades. And it's all grown and they have privacy and a lot of folks tend to like that. So we wanted to give them a tip for tat, something in exchange for doing that.
I have a question on when you updated your CCNRs,
Yeah.
did that require a vote of the HOA?
Yeah.
And so it's like 80% have to vote?
Yeah.
75%
We can't get that. We
Yeah,
tried it
it's-
for other things and
It
you
was
can't
only,
get it.
we only had to do it for one very specific thing. There was one, it's not a loophole, but we didn't change it. A lot of it we didn't change. We just simply adjusted the wording and removed a lot of things to tighten it up and make it shorter, easier to read and understand. As I recall, it's been a few years when we did that, but there was only one thing that we really had to actually have a vote on. We didn't do like wholesale major change, like went from, no fence, do this, do that, and don't do this, to, oh yeah, you can do whatever you want. It wasn't a major change. It was a lot of just tightening up the rules and regs, because again, things written in the 60s, can't have a boarding house. Like, when's the last time you saw a boarding house in this country?
We have the same issue with, our CCNRs are quite general and in some cases quite vague, but it takes 75% to change anything, and trying to get 75% of 781 people to vote yes or no is
It has a lot to do.
really difficult.
It has a lot to do with who's on your board, right? If it's all open to interpretation, basically it means it's open to that board's interpretation of the rules.
And that's what happens. And then, but we take the approach that, okay, there's a general statement that you have to keep your house in a fire safe manner. And looking, and then the rules and regs and or building, the design guidelines and things, that's where you embellish on specifics, what that really means and what that entails to keep it fire safe. So that's the approach we've taken. So we didn't touch our CCNRs. We just revised our rules and regs and design guidelines.
And our understanding of fire safe is a lot different now than it was 20 years ago. So I think that's something to grab that's exists in a lot of the old CCNR. So that's something that you can kind of anchor into and say, the definition of fire safe in this day and age is a lot different than it was 20 years ago or 10. So this is what it is now, and this is what we're going to our membership to. So something to think about.
Yeah, and just the consistent examples of communities being destroyed. We haven't seen that. I mean, what we've seen in the last 10 years, I don't really remember, other than an example or two prior to that, ever seeing that kind of devastation.
Something that really popped up when we were doing the walk around in Deschutes River Woods last week, a lot of those people were there when the Opry fire happened. So I got stories about, we're sitting on our deck and drinking cocktails and watching it, and then all of a sudden we're like, we gotta get out of here, you know, 60 across the river. But what came up that was interesting last week was education of residents to know that the power company will monitor their main lines, but any line coming off of that to your house is kind of the homeowner's responsibility to then look for limbs and everything that could be, you know, endangering lines. And so what we found were some pretty scary, in fact, they took pictures of some that they want to now put in some brochures to show how bad it can be, with beautiful pines and different things coming together over lines. And so one of the things I think we need to educate on is we think the power company is paying attention to all that, but they're really not. They're paying attention to the main lines that they, and then anything coming off to your house is really your responsibility as a homeowner to call in and say, I'm very concerned, can you come out and take a look at this? And it may be out of pocket, it may not be something that the utility company will cover, but they want to do the work, of course, because it's around power lines. And then I think also the confusion around what's a power line, what's a cable line, what's a, you know, so all those lines aren't all power, but what's the power line that is being jeopardized?
Maybe we could get Pacific Power to be a speaker here.
Yeah, that would be a great idea.
Good idea.
Horace is speaking this, July? I think he's speaking in July to Project Wildfire. Yeah, he's the emergency manager.
Forrest, is that his name?
Horace?
Forrest, yeah, we
Horace
met Forrest. Was
Yeah,
is that the
he
one that
spoke
was
last
at
year
the
too.
library?
Huh?
Was he the one in the library?
Probably.
I think he was. I think he was.
Probably. He is an advisor for this subcommittee, and he is on the Project Wildfire Steering Committee. And I have him scheduled for July for Project Wildfire.
You spoke last year, right? Didn't you?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
That's
I
right.
wanted him to come back. I think he said he had some more stuff to share this year, so.
Awesome.
And you can get the packages from him, Eric. He'll bring the radio and the flashlights. Hopefully. I mean, he had a bunch of them there. He handed out.
Yeah,
He handed out.
I could ask him.
I bet he handed out 100. He brought 100 packages or packets.
Well, problem is our neighborhood is on Central Electric.
Oh.
Yeah.
Then they're not gonna be free.
Yeah.
So, anything else?
Maybe, are we doing a round table this time?
That's kind of what we did for the majority of it.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably good topics, but yeah. So instead of having Horace come here, we'll just, people go to the Project Wildfire meeting. Okay.
Lon, could I ask just a quick question? The difference between the monthly Project Wildfire meetings and this meeting, I can kind of figure it out. We do a deeper dive here among neighborhoods and share information versus that's into the big organizations.
Yeah, we're a subcommittee of Project
Subcommittee of-
Wildfire
okay.
that gets more focused on, you know, the neighborhoods and firewise and
Okay.
sharing information and documents, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they take it from a higher level typically.
Yeah.
You know, with county,
State, county,
Yeah.
fed.
so that's, you
Yeah,
guys can add to that if.
Yeah, no,
That's
I
what-
mean, yeah, we're here for, this subcommittee's here to help, you know, mentor each other, share information like Lon said, and so that way not everybody's having to reinvent the wheel every time they decide they want to become Firewise or learn. So it's been really good. It's growing quickly too, which is great.
Yeah, it's grown a lot.
Yeah.
I thought I had a Firewise because I'm right in the process of doing this, but I wonder, I don't know if it'd be this committee or it'd be Project Wildfire or it'd be the fire department to just offer for communities that are willing, that are interested in becoming Firewise, just to do like a little half-day training session and then maybe in the afternoon do anyone who wants to stay and learn how to write a grant proposal, you know, do that. Because I was thinking like for people like me that are busy, if I knew I was gonna have an afternoon to write that grant proposal because I could be there with people to help me if I needed it, I'd probably be more likely to do it right then than kind of put it off. And I also think just, you know, I knew some of the things going into being a Firewise community. I also didn't read everything thoroughly enough. So now I'm learning more things I need to do. I just think it could be helpful for anybody that would want to do it. to just have a quick, easy, here's a workshop to how to become a Firewise community. And I know it's all in a list and it's all the documents can be sent to you by email, because I got them all. But I don't know if that's something down the road might be helpful, to encourage neighborhoods to.
It's very confusing.
So
It is
Heather,
very-
Heather already puts on
Okay,
the workshops. Heather and Melissa and,
for how to become a Firewise community?
well, they did the assessment workshops. I guess, I mean, I don't know anyone that currently does a Firewise specific workshop.
I mean, if
All
you-
the information is very clearly on the NFPA website.
I think what you're referring to though is kind of take those lists and
Take those
talk
documents.
with, or have somebody that's gone through it, done it.
It's,
And
you know, and
here's-
maybe it'd be some of our mentors here that would
I mean,
do it,
exactly,
you
that's
know?
kind of what I'm
Yeah.
thinking is it's, you know, you could put on a, you know, kind of a panel
Yeah, 'cause
and
what-
said, well, how did you get started? How did you add assessments? How, you know, how do you train your assessors? But, you know, blah, blah,
what do you
blah.
have to keep track of, what do you have to submit every
Right,
year,
right.
you know, all of that, and I think, like, when I've asked people in my neighborhood, hey, I'd love more coordinators to work with me, I don't have to be in charge of all this, you know, and they're like, oh, no, it's too much work, and they don't even know what the work is, so, you know, I think if it were just a, come for a half-day workshop, and it's really easy, and just get everything set up and go, and then you can go take it back to your
But-
community, I don't know, I think that could be helpful.
In
May
lieu of
not.
that, that's why we have mentors here.
Yes.
That can work with you one-on-one
Right.
or anybody else. So if you
I'm
want
not
that.
working with Greg on it.
And
so-
Austin, when Austin or Heather come out and do the assessment, they talk a lot about
Yeah.
that process and how they need to do it.
Yeah, we're getting ready to have Austin come out. And then, you know, he's just, you know, says get as many people as you can. So we send an email to everyone in the community and whoever wants to come out and, you know, learn exactly what it takes to be Firewise.
Yeah,
Who's
they'll
doing
have,
that?
they'll have. a
Austin
sheet.
Reimer, he's the major Firewise assessment
State
for, yeah.
forestry service?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, Austin Reimer's the stewardship forester. He just took over Ross Huffman's position. He's your main contact for Firewise right now.
We probably better get moving. Kevin, you usually do a grant update.
Yeah, let's see. So we issued awards for the BLM Community Assistance Grant. We awarded 3 communities. It was Lower Bridge Estates, Deschutes Land Trust, and what's the other one? It's escaping me.
I know we do.
It's right near Sisters. It was another neighborhood right near Sisters. It's escaping, the name's
Is
escaping.
that like Tollgate or?
No.
Plainview neighbor.
Plainview, that's right.
Plainview neighbor. So, it was a pretty competitive grant process. We had, I'd say there was probably at least a half dozen, maybe a few more that were in the running with that grant. What probably really separated the top 3 were the proposals itself. There was a lot of thorough work done into what exactly was gonna happen with those, with the project work. We should get grant money next fall from the BLM, so I hope to continue to have another round of funding for that next year. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more and we can get a little more communities funded with that. As far as the Oregon State Fire Marshal funding, I requested to transfer some of the funding from one bucket to the other. So we had some funding dedicated towards sweat equity. We had some that was dedicated towards our fuel reduction grant. I bolstered our fuel reduction grant to now we're using 75,000 for that fuel reduction grant that we're gonna issue this fall. Most likely the application will come out in September. We also tentatively are getting 50,000 in discretionary lottery money. So this is all tentative, but the tentative amount right now would be 125,000 available for that fall fuel reduction grant. And I really wanted to increase that because I felt from the requests that I've got, a lot of people are doing their own sweat equity programs within their own communities. And it's a lot easier logistically to just fund those communities than to try to do individual contracts with all those communities. We'll still do the bin program. I think that alleviates a lot of the funding need. And so you can utilize that funding for other things like the sweat equity itself and also have the bins to complement that. That seems to be working pretty well. We'll probably do an official grant process on that, or not a grant process, but like official application with that next year. It's seeming to work so far pretty well.
Good.
That's kind of the big grants out there. There's like, there was that Oregon State Fire Marshal grant that came out. It's really more geared towards county and municipalities. There's a few more that are just probably gonna come out, that we'll be looking at in the future. Like the Community Wildfire Defense Grant, they just announced awards for that. Unfortunately, we didn't receive the award. We were trying to combine our CWPPs, so we're gonna have to figure out another way to do that, but. And then they announced some awards, but there was some folks in Oregon that got funded with that program. Walker Range was one of the big ones, I think. And we almost went in on a grant with them, but being not in Deschutes County, it was gonna be a little bit difficult, so.
Is there a grant out there right now that's due sometime in August?
Not that I'm aware of.
So I would have thought it would have been kind of like the fuel reduction, but you said that's.
Not from Deschutes County, no. The only two grants that were that we're offering as official grants was the BLM one that we just finished, and then we're gonna have our fuel reduction grant. And we'll probably announce that in the month of September.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then from the ones from last year, it's just in June when we were supposed to.
June 30th, so everyone hopefully received a link on how to report your information for that. As time gets closer, please let me know if you can meet those deadlines.
This is for the sweat equity?
This is for the last fall.
Oh, last
fuel
fall,
reduction
fuel
grant.
reduction, got it.
And so you should have a link to it, and it's pretty simple form. Essentially, you just fill out what narrative of what you accomplished, provide a budget spreadsheet, provide any invoices, and then photos are always super helpful because that really tells the story.
Yeah, I got a ton of those because we did 47 acres
Yeah.
already this fall. And
Yeah,
I put together a presentation with all the pictures because we met on Bonneville with homeowners that were worried because we were getting ready to do that one next. It's about 9 acres that's
Yeah.
right on the forest land.
yeah.
So yeah, I'll have all that.
Nice.
I had a question on the spreadsheet template. So that's just a suggestion, because there were a lot of columns.
Yeah,
there.
it's
like,
just a
they don't
suggestion.
contain-
It's a one that we use that's a little more complicated. It really breaks it, itemizes it, I really just need it kind of broken down into what the money was spent on, and then if there was any match, how that was worded as well. So. I do have to turn that stuff in, on reporting, for the Oregon State Fire Marshal funding, so. I just need that stuff.
Kevin, do we owe you any report for if we received a sweat equity grant?
Like the bins?
The
dump-
bins.
The dumpsters, no.
Yeah, no report
No,
required.
the dumpsters, I think we're just, I'm not requiring them to be Firewise communities. That's kind of the main way I know of the need. So there's really not much on that. I get the invoices too, so I don't even know if there's really any reporting I need, because I actually know like how much was disposed and everything.
That's true, but let the garbage companies tell you,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you have some pictures,
Well, we could, because we're we're outside the 9 days or whatever it was.
yeah,
So we can report to you if you want us to, just how many more, how many more cubic yards we
yeah.
disposed of. If that's helpful for you, if you want.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that a little bit. I just received my first invoice on it, so I don't know how much information we need, but I probably will need kind of how many communities took part of that program is probably the big thing I need to know, and then maybe how many cubic yards.
That seems like that'd be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did
I
100.
don't know how many cubic
Yeah.
yards though.
Built it 5 or 6 bins, and then this
Size.
second round they dropped off from the
we
super tall bins.
Oh.
They dumped the
No one
bins,
put anything in.
80 times, and we
Okay,
estimate they were
then
typically
how many-
2/3 full.
And I've talked to homeowners
So
about it, and they're like.
They're 30-yard bins, so we're
Yeah.
probably dumping on
Yes,
average
Yeah.
20 yards per bin or something.
Yeah.
It's ballpark.
Has anyone had any issues with it so far as working with Republic or Cascade or?
No, Cascades has been great.
And Republic's been great.
just very minor. Initially, they kind of put them a little closer to the property than we wanted, but they took care of it right away. They're responsive, and so Republic's done a good job for us.
Yeah, and then the city also waived the permit fee
Right.
for that too, so
It
that
was a
was,
little clunky, but it was fine.
yeah.
Yeah, and this was our first time doing it, I think it'll just get better.
Oh, yeah, it'll,
It was a nice mashup of agencies. Thank
yeah,
you,
yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for the program. It's great.
Yeah, I think we'll continue that, because that's really just a single invoice, it's not logistically too difficult. And that is a big request for the grants, is most people are looking for bids for their programs.
Are we gonna talk about things that we've been doing? Do we got time, or are we gonna?
We're about done.
We're about done. I just wanted to say, we did our wildfire preparedness day, and we had Melissa Steele come and do fire extinguisher training, and it was excellent. I mean, it's hands-on. First, she did a presentation in our clubhouse, and we also covered storage of like household chemicals too. And then we went out and had the on-site, we just had an empty parking lot, and they just needed water and power, and it worked really good. And then we went back in after that part was done, and our Firewise committee did a presentation on what we've been doing, and we had some discussion with our residents. But that went really well. I just want to throw that out there if anybody is interested in doing the fire extinguisher training.
Heard those are great. Yeah, maybe I'll ask her when she comes on the 20th, that she'll throw that in.
Yep.
So we're doing basically an hour and a half, and then having Kona Ice come out for all the kids and people and paying for that.
I think the fire extinguisher takes about a half hour to 45 minutes, doesn't it? Kind of what they do.
I'd say it was about, 45 minutes, I'd say, because she does her presentation first, and then the hands-on.
Is
And
she
then
been fire department?
Oh, yeah, Melissa Steele, she's great. I sent out an email a couple of weeks ago, I believe it was now, asking for your input on nominations for awards for the barbecue. So if you haven't done that yet, please do it for me. I'll probably keep that open until the end of next week. But, getting everyone's input for nominations is great. And if you need me to resend the link, I can do that too. Thank you.
No
Thank-
meeting next month, right, because there's the barbecue instead.
We are having this meeting, right?
Yeah,
Oh, we are.
I didn't hear that we weren't having it, so do
I mean,
people,
we haven't talked about not having one.
Oh.
So we're just not, Project Wildfire is not having a meeting, they're having a barbecue. But as far as I know, we're still good for June with us.
I will not be here next month, by the way.
Okay.
But I can coordinate that with Elizabeth. And I need to RSVP you, Patty, because I can't make the barbecue now.
It's me.
So it's you.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, well, I knew you're hosting it, but, okay.
Oh, it's just at, the Shark.
Right. Yeah, no, I wanted to be out there, but it won't work now.
Oh,
So, thank you, everybody. So we will have a meeting next June 20th is our next meeting. And this meeting was recorded, so if you know of anybody that wants to watch it or you wanna watch it again, it's
I've
available.
been putting them on the Project Wildfire YouTube channel. There's a whole section where you can look at the coalition.
And we're gonna keep them a few months, right?
I mean, I'll probably just leave them up there. We leave the Project Wildfire ones up there.
Oh.
It's easy, YouTube, it's easy.
Got it, that's
Yeah.
true.
And it's not using any
Yeah.
storage or,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And I'll try to get the minutes out to Corinne over the next, or into the Google Drive, I guess, and then you send them out within the next week or so. We'll try to get them on the Google Drive, and then you send them out next month on the agenda. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good contract.